Find people.
Of
All right,
course.
we're live. We're live. Happy Sunday. Carlos is back. Yay. Well, thank you everyone who's watching, everyone who's tuned in this morning to our show. Just a reminder, the Bernie Sanders Brigade page is still down. It's still censored. We have no idea when it's coming back, if it's ever coming back, because Facebook doesn't really give you an option. It's really hard to kind of fight back on this. So we're hoping that they'll review the page and everything will be fine and we'll have it back. We'll have our old audience back. But if that doesn't happen, just a reminder that you can watch the show on YouTube at Insight Out News. So that's Insight. Let me type it up here. Hold on. Insight Out News. That's on YouTube. So please subscribe to us here and watch us on YouTube and share that with people you know, because we don't know when the Facebook page is going to come back. But anyway, let's get started with the show, Carlos. Thank you everyone for joining us. As I said earlier, you are watching Stand Up Fight Back, where we discuss strategy and analysis for the progressive movement. I'm your co-host, Margot Pies, and over here is your other amazing and wonderful co-host, Carlos Marroquin, the amazing grassroots organizer. And I forgot to mention that I'm also a scientist, engineer, and occasional journalist. So
Okay.
please remember, occasional journalist. So please remember to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, follow us, etc., etc. Share us with your friends, and especially make sure that you subscribe to the Inside Out News channel on YouTube, because that is not likely to be censored like the Bernie Sanders Brigade page was censored on Facebook. So please make sure you have that as a backup, because we're here every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time, bringing you all the latest, all the good stuff, all the best interviews that are relevant to the progressive movement. Well, Carlos, where have you been?
I've been all over the place. It's so much work that we are doing. But good morning, everybody. Right here from sunny Southern California. I got to tell you, it's beautiful outside. It's absolutely gorgeous. I went for my breakfast. I went for a little walk. Just stunning outside. Not a single cloud. It's beautiful. It's fresh. It feels good being outside. So if you get a chance, get out of your house, go for a walk, go to the park, go do something, just be in touch with nature and or whatever you like to do. So it's a beautiful day to be outside and just to mingle, right? But good morning, everybody, and we like to welcome you right to our page here at the California Latinos for Bernie. This is one of the many pages that we manage through Facebook. We have other pages as well in other platforms on social media. But as Margaret has said, Facebook Facebook has targeted Bernie Sanders Brigade, and it was not the first time. It's been several times that this has happened, where they have taken down our page. So we don't know the reason. We don't know. They don't give you no explanation. They say that the page is being under review. But as you know, we have a lot of haters. There's a lot of haters, and there's some haters within Facebook that have a political uh, again position that they take, and they may not be well pleased with our page. So that's all we can say about that. But we'll see. We're going to continue to do what we need to do to move forward. Margaret?
Thank you, Carlos. Yes, we keep pushing along, and hopefully our viewers will follow us along that way too. Well, a lot has happened this week. There was the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict, and There's also issues with the economy, with rising inflation, also the labor movement. Lots going on there, people going on strike. So we're going to talk a lot about that. And I think also things that we want to touch on in this hour are related to the next year and our hopes for the next year, our plans for the end of the year as progressives and people who are involved in various movements and organizing, and really just try to remember that even though things are pretty challenging, that it's not over. So we have to keep fighting.
Yes, indeed. So, yes, there's a lot that happened this week, and as you know, this we are in a very chaotic world, and sometimes it gets very discouraging for many people. We saw what happened with this trial that everybody's talking about, but it is no surprise to us because we have a system that, um, again, protects certain people, and we have a system that is easily to be moved in different directions with the right kind of attorneys, with the right kind of laws that exist. It's easy to get away with murder, you know. And look, this particular case, I'm not an expert. I gotta say that I'm not an expert. I was not there uh, uh, at the at the events that transpired that brought about the killings of these two individuals. But I can tell you this: that um, what we are seeing, is a rise of the far right that has been instigated by Donald Trump. We are seeing racism at levels that we have not seen before. We are seeing judges that are very opinionated, very politically opinionated. We are seeing a repeat of, um, I'm going to say, uh, issues regarding the court system where we have unfairness in many different ways. We are seeing a rise on uh, on guns, the use of guns, people out there on the streets, people attending rallies, attending political events with weapons, and of course, we are seeing a rise of the far right extremist groups. We are seeing a rise of white supremacists. All those things all put together, this is what we actually end up with. Bad judges, in some cases, judges again that are very opinionated when it comes down to the way they see things, and may you know affect trials, and uh, his refusal to allow certain things in court upset a lot of people. He upset a lot of people, and the end result is that a judge again has all the power in those courtrooms, and whether people like it or not, he's going to make decisions, and he's going to pretty much walk that line that he establishes. And uh, you know whether we find justice or not, people are going to make an opinion about what happened or what should have happened, or people are going to be upset. But putting everything into perspective, is we have a lot of problems in the United States, especially when it comes down to guns, and a political system that is broken, very divisive political system. Again, a rise of white supremacists and racism that doesn't hide anymore. Those are the problems that I'm seeing, that we see, that is pretty much obvious. It's not even hiding anymore. And where do we go from here when it comes down to the continuing killing of people? You know, uh, guns on the streets, and again, laws that are created that allow things like this to continue. He can claim self-defense, and there are certain states that allow these things to happen and will protect them. We have laws like in Florida where you can actually drive through people that are protesting, and it gives them the right to do that. It's insane. But as insane as it is real. And people can get away with murder. And the ones that literally are getting away with these things are, white people. And let's call it for what it is. The wealthy, the well connected, they get away with murder. So, we have a lot to work on. Racism is real. Guns continue to be a huge problem, and there is not going to go away anytime soon. And a court system that is broken. If we can say that, and the least that we can say is a court system that it is broken. Uh, Families, it's hard to find justice sometimes through a court system because there's so many loopholes involved. And if you don't have money, you're pretty much done. If you have money, then you could hire the best attorneys, like in this case here, where he was able to raise millions of dollars, literally millions of dollars, for his defense. So he gets some of the best attorneys that money can buy.
Yeah, this trial was very interesting. I tried not to follow it too much because I didn't want to get too emotionally involved in it. But I know a lot of people did, and there was an incredible divide among people. That surprised me because I sort of thought that this was a very obvious case or an obvious thing that happened, that a 17-year-old showed up with an assault rifle that didn't belong to him to a protest and shot and murdered a handful of people. It's very obvious that, hey, what's a 17-year-old doing at a protest with an assault rifle? First of all, it didn't belong to him. But this ended up turning into a very bizarre kind of procedural fight over that, like that that this was a self-defense issue, that he had a right to be there, that there was a media narrative against him. And I don't doubt that that CNN, MSNBC certainly probably had a particularly biased narrative because that's just sort of how these networks work. They love to push people's buttons and play on their emotions. But I felt that some people were really missing the point that there was a 17-year-old at a protest with an assault rifle and he killed some people. And this idea of self-defense to me was just peculiar because it seemed to me he was the provocateur in this case, that he showed up with a gun. And beyond that, I didn't really understand what the issue was, but there were a lot of people who really ended up taking his side and we're so happy for him. And now, like, is he gonna go on a book tour? I guess they booked him and his family on Fox News. Some Republicans are saying, hey, you can come work with us on Capitol Hill. And, the Proud Boys probably want to give him a job in their little gang too. So I mean, this guy is suddenly, he's a hero. And it's very bizarre because the whole thing is that he didn't belong there with an assault rifle. He was 17 years old. He showed up with an assault rifle and he walked around with it strapped across his body. It was not even concealed. And he thought he was a cop. And the cops cheered him on. So it's a very, very bizarre thing that happened. And it's also really telling of where people's minds are in this country in terms of how they see certain people. And I think that we have a lot to worry about because people, Americans, are so divided and see each other as enemies. And of there's a lot of there's a lot of false narratives about each other, like, painting each other as really bad people. And and like, for example, from the Democrats, like Hillary Clinton calling Trump supporters deplorables and things like that. Like, that doesn't help, right? There's reasons why people supported Donald Trump, not just because they're racist or fascists or anything, but because the Democratic Party left a lot of workers behind, and white workers in particular, and they have a right to feel disenfranchised and ignored as well. They have their own grievances that the Democratic Party did not address. The other thing is that on the other side, then, for example, like Republicans, they paint progressives as being evil, and they want to take your property away. They have these crazy evil socialist ideas, and all of a sudden now we're all just caricatures, and we're not really people anymore. So I'm really worried about that, because when you dehumanize each other, you have no reason to treat each other with respect, and you don't value each other's life. And this, to me, is taking us down a path that is very dangerous. And I worry that we're just tinderbox a tinderbox away from exploding or lighting, or however you want to describe that, and blowing up and causing a massive escalation in violence, where we no longer see each other as fellow Americans, but as enemies. And I personally don't want to see that, because if we continually fight over identity politics or culture wars, things like that, then we're really missing the point of what we need to be fighting against, which really are the ultra rich people who are enslaving us and turning this society into a feudalist, like this sort of neo-feudalist society, and also climate change. So I really hope that we can get past this, because if we don't, we're never going to be able to address the most important issues that we are facing right now. Those are my thoughts on this trial. Carlos, you're on mute. I think you're muted.
I mean, those things are very real, and the way that people have been programmed, and I'm going to say programmed because when you have, rhetoric coming from political leaders, people don't know any better, and they just follow that. When you constantly are calling people that are fighting for social issues communist, people buy into that, and it's furthest from the truth. And unfortunately, sometimes a lot of these people that buy into that are the ones that are the most affected, and they don't realize that they by agreeing and listening to these people, that they actually even hurting themselves. Because when it comes to poverty, it affects everyone. Poverty doesn't have a political side. It affects everyone. When it comes to housing doesn't take a political side. It affects everyone. When it comes down to healthcare, it affects everyone. It doesn't take a political side. And we fall into these traps. And look, even us that we take a progressive side, sometimes some of our colleagues are wrong. Sometimes Democrats are wrong, and we have to call them out, because if we don't, is we're gonna become just like those people that we're fighting against, or those ideals that we're fighting against. I like the way you said it, Margaret, because A lot of the people that follow Donald Trump are following them for the very reasons that Democrats have failed them. And they feel this, they feel like they are not included. Workers feel that they are not included. We get a lot of talk from our, Democrat political leaders, and people see right through it. And this is why a lot of people look somewhere else. What concerns me is that we continue to go in this path that doesn't resolve issues, and then the issues get worse as we continue to go year after year. That's what concerns me, because how long have we been talking about immigration? How long have we been talking about the housing crisis? How long have we been talking about homelessness? And those things are not resolved. Then people, buy into these rhetorics, into these political talking points, and actually believe, what those people are saying. People believe what Donald Trump is saying. Well, he is so far out of reality, but people buy into that. So look, it's definitely a situation that is serious in the United States. The political climate in the United States is so divided. It's so divided, it's beyond belief. I don't even see how anyone can get anything done now. Both Democrats and Republicans. When Republicans are in control, they use the bully puppet. They mandate everything, and the very things that they say the Democrats are doing, they do it, and vice versa. So it's no win. What we have to do as a people, we gotta continue to come together. We gotta educate ourselves. We gotta see what kind of people are we electing. When we elect people that are so far out of touch, that's exactly what we're going to get. So right now we have people that pretty much refuse, anything that is being given as an advice, as a medical advice regarding, the pandemic. They question everything, and people should question things, but some things are just, some things is common sense. But doubt is planted through political figures, and the end result is that it's chaos. The pandemic was totally mishandled from the very beginning, because it was politicized. That is the number one problem with the pandemic, that they politicize the issue, the health issue. Once that happened, forget it. You see how you have now everybody fighting against each other. It was a pandemic. We're supposed to handle it a certain way, but it was politicized with no end in sight now.
Yeah, yeah, that's the concerning thing, is that everything now is a political thing. Like masks, suddenly that's a political thing, and it was not a political thing. This trial is a political thing. It didn't have to be like that. And the thing that worries me, that every little thing is now a political thing. It's a left right thing. You're on the right, you believe this. You're on the left, you believe that. But there are universal things that we can both groups can agree on, and people in between. And there are policies, like a lot of Bernie Sanders policies, are immensely popular across the board. It doesn't matter what party you're in, they're popular. And we don't hear about that. We can't get that legislation passed. Instead, we have to fight over these crumbs. And yeah, we have a terrible legal system, but that's what it is. It's just crumbs that we're fighting over. So, I I just hope that the people, our viewers out there, are just keep in mind that we're not enemies. We have to find ways to work together and solve these problems.
Right.
Yeah.
When it comes down to hunger, people are hungry out there. People are experiencing food insecurity as we have never seen before. The cost of living has increased by leap and bounds. And if we are going to uh, be stuck in political issues on these things, we are not going to get ahead because any kind of policy that is good is going to be attacked.
Oops, sorry,
And,
that's my laundry.
and the ones that are financing this is so the people end up to lose. They end up losing on all this.
That buzz was my laundry telling me it's ready. My mom's coming into town today, so I'm trying to finish cleaning before
Oh,
she gets here. But it's really interesting. So yeah, we talking about this before the show. It was inflation. I got an itch. Inflation is a problem, and it's the narrative on inflation is also very odd. I don't know why I have such an itch today, but I do. I keep scratching my nose. Uh, so inflation is up like 6.5%. So this is like and there's like an average over a basket of goods, doesn't include energy or food, but it's up and people are really feeling it. And I saw the craziest thing. It was from the St. Louis Federal Reserve. They posted a chart, and the chart was comparing the price of turkey versus tofu. And they're like, oh, like a turkey costs this much, but tofu costs less, and you get twice as much protein. And they got totally flamed for it because it was like, what are you trying to say? Like, it was like, it was such a tone deaf message, like a let them eat cake kind of thing, because, you know, prices are going up faster than people's wages are going up. And if you can't afford turkey on Thanksgiving and you're gonna eat tofu, like, I'm a vegan, but I feel like this is very bad messaging from very rich people who are completely disconnected from the needs of everybody else. Like, it just shows that's where the problem is like there's these people in power, and there's a concentration of power amongst people where there's a concentration of wealth, and they are completely disconnected from everybody else and what everybody else is experiencing. They have no idea how to relate to that. And I even see this in news outlets in the writing about inflation. Yeah, there are issues with the way inflation is treated sometimes, in that it's treated as sort of uh, as an excuse to not do certain things, like not to pass certain legislation because, oh, it's going to raise the deficit, and inflation, it's going to rise inflation, which there it's more nuanced than that. But then I see something like out of The Intercept, which is a little more left leaning type of an outlet, where there's an article written that saying inflation is good because well, wages went up 5.9%, so it's almost keeping up. But I mean, that's still less than inflation. That means you still got a pay cut, and not everybody's wages went up. I mean, mine didn't, so I know that mine didn't, and a lot of other people's didn't too. And it's an average, so some things are going up more than others, like the price of gas has gone up for people, energy has gone up, or certain food items are going up. If you eat chicken or beef has gone up in price, right? So it's not just all across the board, everything is going up at the same amount. And it is true that when inflation happens, that it is a good way to cancel your debt. But let me be clear about that. There's not too many people out there who have an interest rate on their debt that is below inflation. Students have extraordinarily high inflation rates, like 8% or 10%, Well, that is still above inflation. And usually the Federal Reserve targets inflation at 2%, right? And so now we're hitting like 5, 6%, whatever. So that's still below. Like all that time, your debt has been rising at least twice as much as the rate of inflation that the Federal Reserve targets. Even now, the fact that inflation is as high as it is, your debt is probably still growing faster than inflation. So you're not benefiting from that. Who's benefiting from it though? I'll tell you. The government is benefiting from it because they monetize debt. So it's a great way for the government to shrink the cost of its debt because they can set interest rates very low, like 1%. So this is great for them, but it's not great for us. And when I see stuff like that, and that's supposed to be touted by the left, by progressives, I'm like, you guys, you don't understand economics. I mean, it's embarrassing. And as I said, again, like inflation gets used in other ways to stop us from passing things, but it's complicated, and it deserves a much more in-depth discussion. But the reality is that inflation is a good way to cut your wages if your wages aren't going up, and it's a good way to make you think that your wages are going up. So you have to be mindful of that. We have to be mindful of that, and people, working class people, are the ones who are going to be affected and are affected by it. Your rent goes up, but your wages aren't keeping up. That's inflation, and that's not good. So so this is also not looking good for Joe Biden. I mean, I don't know exactly what they can do about it at this point. There's a lot of issues, Carlos, with the supply chain. A lot of this is coming out of the supply chain issues that have been building up. And honestly, I think the biggest problem is that governments just completely mishandled the pandemic. They insisted on keeping the economy open and forcing people to work and forcing people to get sick and die. And it's just this is just sort of the side effect of that. People are tired. Even people who work on the supply chains, like work on the ships that go through the Suez Canal, et cetera, that are bringing all of our consumer goods from China, which we of course exported all of our industry out there since the late 70s under neoliberalism, our switch to a financialized economy, right? Like this is all coming back to us and biting us really hard. But this is stuff that we did to ourselves on a number of different levels. So workers have a right to be upset. People have a right to be upset. And inflation, I think overall inflation is not good. Carlos, I don't know. What are your thoughts on all of this?
Well, and what we need to remember is that, we can label any of this any which way we want to, but here are the facts. When the rent continues to go up, it doesn't matter how you call it. When you cannot afford milk or put gas in your car, it doesn't matter how you call it. When you cannot afford your medicine, when you cannot afford to go buy bread, when you have to make those tough choices because everything keeps going up and up and up, doesn't matter how you call it. Doesn't matter how you want to jive the wording around. You know what I mean? It's a system that is not working for people, period. And it needs to be fixed because it creates enormous amount of problems and debt to the country. If we think that by not protecting renters or those or even homeowners, against foreclosures or against evictions, if you think that by not protecting them because you want to use any kind of language to excuse not giving protections to them, it's only going to cost the country more, because now you're going to have more people on the streets, you have more problems, you're going to have more social ills that adds to all the problems that financial problems that we already have. So you know, I'm not an expert in economics, but it's, you know, it's common sense. It's just plain common sense.
Yeah, yeah, and I'll just add a little bit on the economic side to this, though. You know, well, the way the Federal Reserve handled the pandemic was to do this turbocharged quantitative easing where they buy up a lot of the bonds and they buy up corporate bonds, etc. And that's to kind of that's basically like creating new money in a way, but adding it to the balance sheet of banks, etc., corporations, essentially just giving them money. And they also lowered interest rates. So interest rates have been phenomenally low, like incredibly low, like 0%, something like, in that range. So when you have an environment like that, where it's easy to take out a loan, you're creating financial instability, and because you allow for speculation, because people can just leverage, they can just take out loans. And then what do? Like they start looking at markets like housing markets, and they're like, hey, if I just put some money, if I take out this loan and I buy this house in Austin, Texas, then, maybe in 5 years the price is going to go up, and then I'll just flip it and sell it. And that's what people are doing. And it's not just, it's like, and it's not like, your average person who works at Costco that's doing it, but it's like more well-off people, like people who work in the tech industry, but then also these mega investment companies are doing it. And so now they're causing the price of our homes to go up because there's more demand, and they're willing to pay 20% above the asking price and in cash because they and and then there's like nothing for everybody else because they can't afford that, and they're not getting the same price on the loans probably. And that was just not in their budget, right? Because you're working, you make $60,000 a year or something. Like, that's not, you cannot compete with somebody who gets a loan like that, and who's going to come sight unseen and just buy up everything, because they're not really interested in living where you want to live in your community. They're just interested in seeing that house as an asset, as a store of value. And that is encouraged by these low interest rates. So the Federal Reserve has a certain amount of responsibility in here in their monetary policy that is causing these problems. And people, Americans, working class people, are so busy and so overworked that there's little time for them to really understand all that is happening. But there are reasons for why you can't afford a home right now, why you're competing with somebody who's coming in with cash and putting in over 20% asking price, and you're getting kicked on the side of the street. You can't pay your rent, right? Like, there are reasons for this, and it's just a complete mishandling of the economy. And this is happening. I mean, it started under Donald Trump, and it's sort of independent of who comes in office, but it's coinciding now. Like, the repercussions are coinciding with a Democratic president, and so this is gonna affect the midterms. And because workers, people, like you said, Carlos, it doesn't matter what the name is, but if you can't stay in your home, if you can't afford food, if you can't afford your medicine, like, who are you going to blame, right? You're going to blame whoever's in office, and they're like, well, you didn't help me. Like, you passed this legislation, but it didn't help me. So the Democrats are really in trouble. I think they don't get this together. They don't really figure out a way to address these issues. So far, what I've seen is that Joe Biden wants to address it by selling oil reserves. Somehow that's going to help. Or letting Joe Manchin can put in these fossil fuel subsidies into the Build Back Better plan, so that oil companies can put carbon capture. So any oil company or coal company that includes carbon capture can get a special fossil fuel subsidy so that they can stay in business.
Right.
So, yeah, this is
And
a really fantastic
thing.
administration.
Right. I mean, those are the things that we're going to be seeing, and people seeing right through the political arena. They seeing what the Republicans are doing. They seeing what Democrats are doing, and there's a lot of discouragement right now from voters. And here's the dangerous part: that what allow what we are seeing right now in Washington to take place was allowed because voters disconnected, because voters were not getting involved. And, for the past, I would say, 4 years, people started to pay attention and start getting a little bit more involved. What concerns me again is that people are going to disconnect because they see all these problems.
Yeah.
They say, "Oh, what's the use?" They throw their hands up in the air. What is the use? Look at the Democrats. Look at the Republicans. Right? Look at all the promises they make. Nothing happens. That's exactly what they would like to see done. Is for people to disconnect and give up because things are not happening the way we would like to happen. And including progressives. There's a lot of progressives. They start calling out the few progressives that we have in Washington, because they think, oh, they should be doing this, they should have voted like this, or they should have whatever, and they give up. And that's exactly the wrong thing to do, is to throw in the towel at this time. We are gaining momentum, we are gaining ground, and then we just pretty much are going to abandon this and walk away. So what we need to actually be doing is the opposite. We have to evaluate the achievements that we have had. We have to evaluate the good things that we have been doing, and the areas where we have been able to be very strong on, and we need to build on those things. And then we need to double down on those things. And if there's any advice that I can give to people, if there's anything that we can tell people as an organizer, is that we can say a lot of things. And it's okay to criticize. And we can criticize, we can do this, and we can say that, and we can say whatever. But if you are not getting involved, if you are not participating, it means nothing. The things that you say means nothing. You have to get involved. Criticizing is good, okay? You say the things that you need to say, but you need to match it by getting involved and participating. I can criticize Biden all day long. I'm going to find all kinds of things wrong with him. And I can criticize Bernie Sanders all day long, and I'm going to find things that may be wrong with him. But at the end of the day, my criticism does nothing if I'm not getting involved, if I'm not participating, if I'm not putting the ideas that I think should happen into play, by joining other groups, by joining groups. But look, all of us are concerned about the climate change. Well, the question is, what are we doing about it? Are we going to blame Biden all day long? We could do that. That's okay. But if we're not doing anything about it, they're not going to do anything about it. So the question falls on us. What are we going to do about it? So number one, I think that needs to be happening right now. We need to stop for a second. We need to take a hard look at what we have achieved these past 4 years. Where have we been? What have we done? What has worked good for us? What is not working? And then we need to build on that. We have really deep roots already, because we know that the policies that we have been fighting for are real. That's the changes that need to take place. We have done a lot of good work on the ground. People actually believe in the things that we are fighting for. Medicare for all It's one of the most popular, issues that people will actually support. Well, we got to double down on these things. We got to build on that. Whatever those things that we have been doing, we have to do more of it if it's working. And if it's not working, we have to reevaluate that. And if we need to drop it, we drop it. And we make the necessary adjustments. We have X amount of people in Congress now that actually, came from us, that believe like us, that believe in the issues that we care about. Well, if let's say we have 10 Congress people in office now, we think about doubling down. Why not have 20? That's what we need to be focusing on. How is it that we're going to put more people in there so it becomes easier when the voting comes, when it becomes easier for us to be able to really like push the Pelosi's, the push, the whoever into the issues that we care about, into the policies that we care about. But if we don't have the political power inside, then it's hard. It's really hard. It doesn't matter what we think. Doesn't matter how we feel. We have to have something that is real, but that doesn't come unless you are participating and getting involved.
Yep. That's the only way. It's the only way. We only have people power. That's what we have. We don't have a lot of money on our side, obviously, but we have a lot of people. There's a lot more of us than them. And the only way we're going to accomplish things is if we come together and we fight for the things that we want. So and so that involves organizing, that involves running for office, it involves civil disobedience, especially on the really important things like climate change. And this means like getting arrested, and not just getting arrested, but also making sure that when that happens, that you then go and you tell everyone about you getting arrested. And there's a whole process on to this, actually, on how to do successful civil disobedience. And I recommend, actually, I'll look it up, but there's a really great talk about what to do in terms of civil disobedience and how to actually do it correctly. I just need to find
But one
it.
of the things, since you're in the topic and why you look at that, is like one of the things that people often ask, and they want to know how to organize this, or what they need to be doing and everything. Is like, I always say, look, don't try to reinvent the wheel. If there are so many organizations out there that are doing such a great job already, we need to participate. We need to get involved with them. We need to learn what some of the stuff that they're doing, and
Yeah.
how we can bring our own specialties, our talents, to be part of that, right? So, I mean, there are so many uh, environmental organizations. There are so many housing, justice organizations out there. There's so many organizations fighting for education, uh, or for mass incarceration, or whatever the issue is that you care about. There are organizations that are already doing such a good job. All we have to do is join them and getting involved and start participating and grow their numbers. That's how we win.
Yeah.
We are organizing right now a march over at the Rose Parade on climate change. As much as I hear people talking about climate change and criticizing this and criticizing that, I want to see you come and participate and march with us.
Yeah. We got to get some people's attention, get their attention. The more people who are out in the street, the harder it is for them to avoid us. So we have to do these things. And I just shared it in the comments, and I'll post it up here. So this is the video. It's Roger Hallam. You can look him up. It's called How to Stop the Climate Crisis in 6 Months. Roger Hallam, Hallam. He is one of the co-founders of Extinction Rebellion in the United Kingdom. And the amazing thing about this guy is that he was just an organic farmer who was concerned. He was seeing the effects of climate change, and then he went and he studied a graduate degree in civil disobedience, and he looked through the history and he came up with these kind of rules on what you need to do. So I highly recommend that. It doesn't only apply to climate change, it can apply to any issue at all, because obviously he studied civil disobedience for around different issues that were not climate change, like Martin Luther King, the civil rights movement. And he talks a lot about what Martin Luther King did. And Martin Luther King Jr., he after he would get arrested, he would go on a tour, and he would go all over the country and talk about what happened, talk about his message, and get people excited about it and say, like, you guys need to do this too. And the thing is that you don't need a lot of people to organize these, and often it's better to have a small core organization of, like, let's say 5 people, and you're the ones who are going to come together and plan out exactly what this action is going to be. Then you can go out and find people to come and join you, and have people who are willing to get arrested participate in your action. And one of the things he threw out a number that you need to, like, hand out like 5,000 leaflets, or like post 5,000 leaflets, and like give talks, like say, like, come to my talk and talk about what the issue is and why it's important, and then what the action is going to be, and then have people sign up at the end. And you'll find that you'll get a handful of people, maybe 4 people. Two of those people are willing to be arrested, and those numbers start adding up. Then you do the action, and then people get arrested, and then you start all over again. You go on tour, you talk about what happened, you talk about how you were arrested. So this is sort of a recipe that you can try. And you can apply this to climate change, apply this to healthcare, apply this to Black Lives Matter, et cetera, et cetera. So these are some tactics that we can do just on the action side, just going out there and doing civil disobedience. But of course, that's just one thing. There are many other things that we can do, like as we said, like, running for office, or joining an existing organization and getting plugged in there and doing community outreach. These are all important things. All of these tactics come together and work together to help us reach our goals. So we have to remember that if we just sit at home and only complain on Twitter, we won't really get anything done.
Right. I mean, there are things as simple as being able to get a couple of you that think alike. All of us know people that are concerned about certain issues. Well, go to the 99-cent store, buy yourself a couple of whiteboards, make yourself a sign and go stand in the corner. I guarantee you, some people are going to see you, they're going to honk, or some people may stop. If you go in front of the shopping center, people, want to talk about it. They see your sign and they're like, oh yeah, this concerns me. And then you take their information. You say, hey, we will let's have a cup of coffee. Let's have a discussion on this.
Yeah.
And he may know somebody else, and somebody else knows somebody else. Before you know it, you start a group.
Yeah.
Grassroots really work.
Yeah.
Awesome thing. And I'll tell you why, because it's coming from the ground and it's real. And it's the only thing, the common thing, and the focus here is the issue. And you start putting your ideas together, and somebody says, hey, I got a photocopy machine, let me make some copies. Or I have this, I have that, right? Or you could use my place, I have a nice big living room.
Oops. What happened to Carlos?
I had a call coming in. Sorry about that.
Oh, there you are.
But yeah, I had a call coming in. So that's the thing, is that we can learn to do things even if it's in a small scale. But when people see you out there you pretty much are going to inspire people. People are going to say, "Oh my God, look at that guy! He's out there standing for climate change."
Mhm.
Guarantee you, I will almost put my money behind on this. Someone is going to stop, park their car, get off, and say, "Oh my God, this is so awesome! What you're doing? What's your name?" And that's how it starts.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
And that,
did a. I mean, it does work. I did a little bit of that before the pandemic. It was just two people, myself and my friend, and we met on Twitter actually, and we sort of started this organization, and we were doing climate actions at the state capitol, and it was just the two of us at first, and but we were able to start bringing out more people. And at one point there was a group of high school students there, and they were so blown away. They were cheering us on. We were just standing there very quietly with our sign saying declare climate emergency. And there was a student, a high school student, who was on her high school journalism club, and she actually interviewed us for her local paper, for her paper. So I think, you don't know who you're going to affect or inspire. So it's important to do it, even if
right,
it's just two people. I mean, it really was just the two of us planning this and trying to get people to show up. And really, the only thing that ended up stopping us was the pandemic. Everything shut down, and we couldn't continue. So it's possible. You can do this. You can pick up momentum. We one time we just went over to the mall. We just stood on the corner with our signs. Just, people
right.
would honk, or and most people were supportive. Surprisingly, in the state of Georgia, people were supportive. So you just don't know. You don't know, and it doesn't hurt,
Because there's
even if it's just two
that are,
people.
right. There's a lot of people that are thinking the same thing.
Hmm.
For every one person that shows up somewhere to a city council meeting, uh, the number they say that the average number of people that would have been representing in there because of you would have been something like 10,000 people. You know, for 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 one person standing in the corner, there's 10,000 other people that think just like you.
Hmm.
That could be there for one reason or another that they're not there, but that's really the kind of representation that we have.
Yeah.
So uh, there is a lot to say when people take a step forward, and what we need to do is we need to be encouraging each other instead of
Hmm.
talking about each other, instead of tearing down each other. We need to build each other up. You know, this is not about an organization's name. This is not about who's gonna be the leader of this or that. This is about the issue. Just moving forward and pressing for the issue. How we are going to overcome the challenges that we are facing right now is going to be through the power of the people power.
Yeah, and you
That's how
don't.
we go.
Yeah, and you don't know what's going to spark the national imagination, right? Like, you don't know. So everybody, the more people who try, the higher the probability that one of those things that somebody did sparks the imagination of the entire population. And now we have suddenly something like Occupy sprouting up, where we have an occupation in every city, right? Like, that's the type of thing that we don't know what's going to cause it. But if we have more people working on it, trying different things, we have a higher chance of it happening sooner. So
Right,
everybody has a role to play, and no one should feel like they can't contribute, because we all just have to try. We just have to try, and,
right.
and it may not be what I did that succeeds, but maybe it's somebody who's watching this show. You but it only happened because we tried to do it.
Look, Margaret. Sometimes it's difficult, and I'm gonna be perfectly honest. We've been here every Sunday. For the past few months, we've been doing this show
Past year.
already. Yeah, to bring information to people, to talk about the issues that we care about. Sometimes it may be challenging. I mean, you got things to do. On a Sunday, there's a lot of stuff that we could be doing. Sometimes we don't feel good. We have problems just like everybody else, but we have a commitment to the people. And you don't know how many times we have gone and people have told me, "Oh my God, we've been watching the show on Sundays. It's so good. Is we got so much information that you guys are giving us." We have had on this show, that we're running through Bernie Sanders Brigade. Uh, we had representatives, we have congressmen coming to our show. We had city councilmen. We had leaders from huge organizations that have come and offered their time. And so we know that this is going somewhere. It's getting somewhere. Someone is listening. So we are just stepping out in faith. You know, we don't see you, we don't see the audience, but we know that our voices are heard, and we have a responsibility to the community. And not only that, but we want to be able to inspire you. We want to be able to tell you, that there is hope. We want you to be encouraged and know that if we do participate, if we get involved, if we stay visible, if we don't give up, if we stay hopeful, if we organize, if we come together, if we unite, if we talk through the problems, if we press on, that we are going to see results. But don't give up. Right now, more than ever, we need you. The future needs you. The earth needs you. Students need you. Our seniors need you. Our unhoused community needs you. Our tenants, renters, they need you. And the list goes on and on and on. And if you care about some of these issues, don't give up. We are going to have challenges. We are going to have doors slam in front of our faces. But that's okay. We'll just go around the other side. Before you know it, it's like, how did you get here? Oh, I just went through the other side. I thought I closed the door. Well, I went through the other side. So it's that simple, folks. It's like, yes, there's going to be setbacks, but don't give up. Keep pressing on, because the best is yet to come. Is yet to come. I can hear you.
Thank you, Carlos, for that wonderful sermon. We are unfortunately out of time, though, so we have to wrap up. But I wanted to give a quick shout out to Antioneta Villamil, who is watching in the audience and who is our poet in resident, who we haven't had on in a while. We have to bring her back on to do another poem.
We have her. Yeah.
So we'll bring her back on soon. And thank you to our audience for sticking with us. I know it's a little hard to find us because the Bernie Sanders Brigade page is down, but as we said, we are also simulcast on YouTube, and I'll put that back up here. We're at Inside Out News, so just search for us. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube, because if any other of our pages goes down, you'll know for sure we will be there. We live stream every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time. You're watching Stand Up Fight Back, where we discuss strategy and analysis for the progressive movement. As I said, I'm Margot Paez, your co-host, and this is Carlo Marroquin, your other co-host on this awesome show. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Don't forget to share us with your friends, and get vaccinated, get that booster, and still wear a mask, because unfortunately, we're not through this yet 100%. So we'll see you again next week. Thank you all for watching, and see you soon. Take care.